people who try to create out of fear, they ultimately destroy things. But people who come from a place where there's no fear, when they create, it's actually something of substance and is of value. It's going to help someone. And I think that that's part, when we talk about like an agenda, that's one of the reasons why there is so much fear-based content that is being promoted around the world. And I've been talking about this a lot on my radio show, Transcending Media Manipulation, live video stream on YouTube. How so much of the content that we find, you can go onto Yahoo, you can go onto, when you go to your Yahoo or when you go to your Google, when you look at the headlines, you go on to CNN, you go to Fox, Reuters, you go on to BBC, it doesn't matter, Al Jazeera, you go to Russia Today, you look at the headlines and it's all fear-based content. It's content that is rooted in trauma. You know, I say it's four things mainly: death, destruction, war, and gore. Death, destruction, war, and gore. And there are people who tune into that particular paradigm of fear. I call it the fear paradigm. And what they receive is traumatization. Out of this traumatization, they become fearful. Out of their fear, they begin to externalize power. As they externalize power, that's how they maintain a solid state of control. And in essence, that's how they are possessed. They're possessed by the information itself and the energy field that is associated with information, which is traumatizing, which is rooted in fear. The reason why this is important to dissect is because people cannot be full, they can't reach their full capacity as a creative being on planet Earth if they are in a state of fear. You will find that people who are fearful have a very difficult time being productive. Oftentimes, fear causes them to consume even more because as they consume it, for whatever reason, psychologically, it alleviates this fear. Okay, if I can keep buying this, then maybe someone's going to love me now. As a man, if I buy this car, maybe a woman is going to love me. Now, as a woman, maybe if I put on that type of a dress that reveals a lot of my body, that's all fear. Maybe someone's going to love me now. That's all coming from the fear paradigm, but you can't really be creative that way. So part of what I'm getting at is that fear plays a major role in terms of the stagnation of the species itself on planet Earth, because if you can keep people inside a state of fear, as you put it, in terms of the crystallization of their reality, it would be fear-based. And a crystallized fear-based reality is ultimately going to produce people who can constantly externalize power, and that's how they're maintained in a state of control. In other words, that's how they are possessed. So part of what I try to do in my work is try to show people this fear paradigm, what it is, and how to begin to transcend it. A lot of it comes from mass media. So I have the show is called Transcending Media Manipulation. In essence, transcending the fear paradigm that is rooted in the traumatization and re-traumatization of the human species. If we are to get this species back on track to what I call cosmic respectability, it will be necessary for us to look at the fear paradigm for what it is and ultimately to transcend it, because you cannot reach your full capacity as a creative being if you are stuck within this crystallized formation that we call fear. And a lot of people around the world are stuck in this particular paradigm. In point of fact, I should add that in terms of its impact, fear's impact on the psychological condition of the human species, fear, it actually shuts down our intellectual processes. In other words, our ability to think critically and to ascertain the difference between truth and lies, fact and fiction, what is relevant and what is irrelevant. When you're in a state of fear, you're tapping into the animalistic nature of the human species. In other words, we're getting into the flight or fight mechanism, which is tied to the subconscious mind and the subconscious programming. Whenever we're dealing with fight or flight, it is not creative, it is reactionary. Right? It is rooted in the fear paradigm. It is rooted in trauma, past trauma that can be re-triggered to cause people to react. Fear causing people to react based upon the fear, they either fight or flee. Most of us, we flee. Okay, the reason why that is significant is because you cannot expect to materialize anything of consequence, anything that is positive, and create anything of consequence or anything that is positive if, in point of fact, your intellectual processes have been compromised through that program of fear. So one of the major things that I've been outlining inside my shows is a need for people to break the fear paradigm, because fear ultimately compromises the intellectual processes. And ultimately, if you want to create and reach your full capacity as a creative being, you're going to have to think about what you do, as opposed to reacting to the programming that is rooted in fear.